Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over 20 PvP teams once again. 10 for the ones that we're going to be using and 10 for the lower rarity versions. This is mostly because we've gotten enough new rooms that basically worth covering a video on. I think the only repeat ones we have are blue, yellow, and giant, with all of the other 7, well I guess technically 6, because the middle's always the same. So all of the other 6 actually being unique this time around. So quite a few things to end up going over. Before we do, one pretty big revelation that we kind of pretty much already knew, but is just confirmed in-game as of this week, is that silver marks can be used to get all the pets, so you no longer need to go for any of the gold ones. This means it is very high priority to be going for wherever your little marker is. There'll be 2 that are always marked at a given time. I would say on this particular week, Sword's Edge is probably the one you want to skip, especially if you don't have some of the higher rarity stuff, but you can do it based on whatever team you feel like is slowest, based on what you have option-wise. Otherwise, you could just keep skipping the middle in order to try to maximize on points, as the outer rings give more silver marks. So do be following these every single time and actually go to these locations, do 5 fights, and then you'll get yourself a bunch of silver marks, which you use to input towards the pets. And now you'll be able to go get all of the pets that way instead of just the gold marked ones, or, instead of just the silver marked ones, as those gold marked ones do eventually return as silver marked ones. But anyways, let's start getting into the main thing of the video, and that is all 20 teams. We're going to be doing it same to how we did last time. We're just going to use our team, but go over the lower rarity team as well as we go through every single one. So, I don't think I've actually changed my middle team. I've just mostly been running Stellarex for the most part on anything when we're allowed to run Stellarex. So anytime we can throw that in, I've kind of been doing so. Keep in mind, of course, if you don't have Stellarex, Diamantina, the next closest thing in any given situation. Stellarex is kind of nice with its extra turn potential. We want to go straight into the insta-kill, and we're good to go. Obviously, with the middle restriction being absolutely anything, you have a very absurdly wide range as far as what you are able to get away with. For the lower rarity team, I ended up going down a Black Manacle Truffle build. We're using Bork as our mana accumulator, though you can use any number of other similar mana accumulators. Leprechaun, which is also an event key drop table this week, by the way, if you haven't already gotten it. If you're a newer player, definitely make sure you get your hands on it. Really great option to have. Black Manacle you get just from leveling up your hero. Leprechaun's in event keys for the rest of this week, so make sure to get that. A King Gob Truffle, if you don't have it, is from Amethyrax. You throw Chaos Shards at the portal in the Amethyrax faction, and you'll eventually get yourself a Truffle pretty easily. And that makes the hardest thing on this team to get being a Bork. We did have an event for it last May, so if you happen to have gotten it then. Otherwise, he is an epic rarity troop that has no direct way of getting it. However, if you don't have Bork, that's fine. You can run Thrall there, you can run Marilith there. I always happen to be running Bork, but any Mash Destroyer, even Bog Strider or something similar, you can just put all those there and it'll be perfectly fine. This team just happens to be running with Bork here. And that's pretty much the premise. You just go and AoE them down and use your double mana accumulation team to get everything rolling. Next, let's go over to yellow. So we're going to go basically from the middle and work our way out like we did last time. And I think you guys already know what we're running for yellow. It's actually the same team for both. I didn't even bother changing it. It just works. There's no need to fix it. It works perfectly fine. For some of these, I do want to try covering different teams compared to what we did last time. Like, I think I switched up the Giant team and a few others like that. However, this is one of those that really doesn't need any tweaking. Not only was this pretty accessible because it was available pretty recently, like, what, literally weeks ago, earlier this month. Not only that, so the accessibility of it's really high, but it's just good. It just works for everything. This is what it needs to do. Infinite loops, gets your damage in, just very, very strong. And not much to really go over for the low rarity team, as it is the exact same thing, completely unchanged. The Egress you end up getting from random Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest drop table. Actually, now that I think about it, it might be so recent that if you didn't get it a couple of weeks ago, it might actually not be in drop table. Same as Ihi Cattle. I didn't even think about that till just now. They might actually not be in drop table right now unless you got them from the event a couple weeks ago. Though if you've been playing for about a month, you likely got both of these from the event a couple weeks ago. And then that just makes Finesse the Guardian, which you get from opening up your guild keys. And those drop pretty commonly. You do need to get fully traded, which is a little bit costly early on in the game, but that's honestly probably the most costly thing on this team, is actually getting those things fully traded. Next, we have ourselves, I believe, red, which is a new coloration. This is the first time we've ever had red as an option. And for both teams, I do go down the Infinite Huntmaster route, and that's pretty much our game plan here. For this one, we're running a Stellarex build with the Rubrafs, though, of course, if you don't have Stellarex, run Diamantina. If you don't have Diamantina, run a Rubraf. And if you need other things to offset the Uberbarafs, just put some other things that can hit all enemies. Dragons have a lot of them, as well as red. Oh, this technically is, well, it's technically both. Oh, no, he actually has freeze. Oh, I should have went on the battle that didn't have freeze. This team does very much hate freeze, which is not good, and we are very much frozen everywhere. This team assumes you will not get frozen. However, we should be fine. Just double AoE down here. We do get a bit of a miss, but we just go for the Rubraf and we're good to go. So basically, it's just the red loop dragon feeding into a bunch of things that do AoE damage. Anything that can hit all enemies will be perfectly fine. And obviously, the better options you have, the better. With basically either Diamantina or Stellarix into a bunch of Rubrafs if you happen to have it. Anyways, next up, oh yeah, before we do that, the lower red team. We still end up going down a similar route, except we go with the complete budget options. The Summer's Fury, you get... so we're using Dragon Guard, so it's still 4 times Dragon. It's actually unique 4 times Dragon, so we're still getting all those bonuses as well. A little bit extra durability, which can help out quite a bit early on in the game. Of course, these numbers might be a little bit lower for you based on how upgraded you have your pets, but still be extra durability and damage nonetheless. But we're using the Summer's Fury, which is a weapon you get for free just from leveling up your hero. Probably have it already laying around. Huntmaster is probably the hardest thing to get. He's definitely in drop table now. But he's an epic Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest drop table. You can end up getting him there. Great Worm, you just throw Chaos Shards at the Worm Run faction. You can end up getting a copy of him. And Dimatraxia, you end up getting for free just for completing out the Darkstone Kingdom. So overall, pretty accessible, with the hardest thing to get being the Huntmaster, though. This team is very heavily based around the Huntmaster itself. As a boost based on all the dragons on your team, you create a billion red, and you just kind of go from there. Great Worm you can do for a little bit extra AoE. You also have triple damage burning. That's actually why we're running Dimatraxia. This has a 75% chance to burn on cast, and your hero, assuming you have it fully upgraded, early on in the game, I guess that might not be as likely. But if you do have it fully upgraded, you also get that triple damage burning. Otherwise, you can replace this out for another thing that hits all enemies. Ideally, something that is, well, I guess it has to be red, doesn't it? I was going to say, ideally something that uses red, but it kind of has to be red, doesn't it? But any kind of red dragon that you have that hits all enemies, you could even just double up on Great Worm. Would all work out perfectly fine. Anyways, next up, we got ourselves the blue. So blue we did have the other week. I can't remember if I switched up the teams too much. I think I actually ran a pretty similar team this time around. We're running I'm running Wand into Grey King. So Grey King, pretty nice. Grey King actually really good on all 3 of its colors, blue, purple, and brown. Being a pretty good hard counter for them. You could even end up using it for the undead category, which we have not seen yet. However, it will eventually be a thing. You know, we'll see the undeads, in which case he'll probably be the meta for that section. Thinking of what undeads we even have available for it. But basically, we're just spamming Beatrix into him. He's allowed to hit every single thing simultaneously. And we just do that onto blue. Did I just not hit blue earlier? Whoops. Do make sure to actually target the color that they correspond to. In this case, blue in this particular situation. Otherwise, he will not actually do damage to them. Did I actually forget, or did they just all cleanse like immediately? And it was killed out with Beatrix. There we go. And we have Bane of Mercy there that applies 4 times Curse as well as some mana initially. I don't think we actually used it there because we didn't really need it. But it's there in case we do. And as far as the cheaper blue team, I believe we just went down the Truffle Loop. I've been showing this team a little bit, pretty often actually, for a couple things. I think I even mentioned it for the blue holiday event that we have going on. Don't forget to finish that out as of this video going out. There's still several days left if you want to finish out that holiday event. But basically, whatever blue team you're running for that, you can pretty much just plop right here. In this case, I'm just putting the Truffle team here. Because you have the Forest Troll, which probably the hardest thing to get on this team, oddly enough. Because it's the only one that's not from a faction, but he doubles all your green, which is very useful. Truffle, which you can get from the Amethyrax faction, he just has infinite loop into himself. And while having a doubling of the green, it makes it even easier for him to loop as he feeds brown back to the Forest Troll as well as green into himself. And then this creates a bunch of green based on the green you just created and just keeps going back and forth. And Mirage King, this is pretty flexible as far as we could replace it out. However, you get it from Sunken Fleet faction. We actually just had the event for it the other day. But you get this from the Sunken Fleet faction at any point. Doesn't have to be the event. And throw Chaos Shards there, and you'll eventually get this legend. Mostly used for its 50% mana start to all Elemental, which this team is pure Elemental, oddly enough. We're going to have so many options whenever the Elemental category eventually rolls around. Anyways, we're just 50% mana starting all this. Forest Troll double green. These go back and forth. And pretty straightforward from there. With Forest Troll being the hardest thing to get, as the other 2 can be targeted pretty easily from the factions. And you can replace out your last slot for a hero. Ideally like a Green Storm hero if you want to go down that route. The best way to end up doing that would be with the Warden class, as it has both Dispel and Green Storm. However, just running something like Archer that is more likely to be upgraded is also perfectly fine. Anyways, let's move on to the next category, which is finally heading to the Outer Ring. So, of course, a lot of these categories can be very annoying. Monster does have a few options that aren't too bad. We have access to Box Strider, which I don't think I actually use on either teams, but it's a pretty good mana accumulator like Thrall. And we have a few other kinds of like utility troops here and there. This particular one that we're doing right now is just a Megavore team into double AoE. Or basically just using just like a pretty average AoE troop. and just doing it with the armor tier off of Megavore. So our whole goal here is to get full mana on everything first. We then go armor tier with the Megavore, which might actually be a little overkill since it's actually a little bit of a weaker fight that we took here. Anyways, cast both of them, and if they're still not dead by then, well, just go for the weapon again. And you just do that cycle and hope that is enough to kill them. If you take the first or second fight, it should most of the time be enough. Really depends what kind of fight you get. Like this one, we should still be able to one cycle for the kill, whereas a team like this probably has enough durability where they will live, and we'll need to get an extra cast on them. That's pretty much the premise. You Megavore them down, kill them out with a bunch of AoEs, go from there. As far as the cheaper team, we ended up going down quite a few interesting things we can end up doing with this. But I ended up going down the scroll route, oddly enough. We're using Centurion to convert them into a ton of mana. You also have a chance of just randomly getting Devour, which if that triggers, you pretty much just auto-win from that point. Black Manacle, just a small Devour rate while also holding down the line, while also having AoE damage. Using Archmages to get both of them to full mana. Cockroaches here, just a really safe early game option. Entangles an enemy, drains a bunch of their mana, and then creates a bunch of brown gems, which pretty much the entire team uses, including itself. So it feeds back into itself. Already has a +1 yellow, so you don't even need to change your banner for it. Overall, really great troop. If you haven't been using this early on in the game, really, really great overall troop to be utilizing. And it has both Entangle and Mana Drain, meaning that one single troop basically can't do anything, assuming they can be entangled, as when they're entangled, or both Entangle and Mana Drained. But if they could be entangled, then they can't do any attack damage, and if you just Mana Drain them, they can't cast on you. So the two things that they can do offensively, other than their trait, have just been disabled from that. So it works out pretty nice. And Zerator here, you get this from throwing Chaos Shards at the All-Seeing Eye faction. As far as what it does, just a double damage poke into a skull spam. Also has a little bit of Death Mark here and there. I was going to build a little bit more around it, but opted not to, as I kind of forgot the troop that actually builds into it under monster already converts yellow to skull, so it'd be a redundant double yellow to skull. So I end up just going with Xerator itself and just going down the Centurion route, which I don't personally do too often, but it's a pretty nice troop. Unfortunately, it's actually the hardest thing on this team to end up getting, as this you get from a faction. This weapon is free from leveling up. This is a very low rarity thing you have laying around, most likely, which makes Centurion the hardest piece to actually get on this team. But you're mostly just using as a mana accumulator, so worst comes to worst, just replace it with Box Strider. Box Strider, pretty sure it's monster, right? Box Strider, elemental monster, so yeah. If you don't have it, just replace it with Box Strider. Probably have to switch up the banner a little bit to be more heavily into green. Probably push to green +1 brown or something similar. But yeah, you could easily replace it out with a super cheap option. I just happen to do Centurion here, but Box Strider, definitely way cheaper if you want to go down that route if you don't have other options. Anyways, next we have ourselves the Mystic. So as far as Mystic is concerned, Queen Titania has 20% extra stats this week, so a good idea to be using that. Safest thing that you can do is Zachi. I think we went all in on Zachi on the lower rarity team. It's just a really safe all-round option to end up utilizing for it. So right off the bat, we're going to go and... actually, what should we do? I guess get Wand going. As you may notice, I'm using Wand a lot on the higher rarity teams. I do consider a higher rarity weapon, even though once you get the Lovers, or whatever that one thing tarot card is that you need for it, once you get that, the weapon is basically free. But you could really go a lot of Vault Keys without getting that. So I do actually consider this to be a high rarity weapon, even though it's pretty luck-based if you get it early or not. Like, you literally get it within your first week, though. It could also take, like, half a year to a year, depending on how much you grind Vault events and stuff. So I generally consider it a higher rarity option. What do we even need here? Do we have 13 plus red? We do not. We're about to lose hero, obviously, but we already have full mana on everything, so I guess we'll just go for it. Throw down to Queen Titania. He didn't actually go for it. Oh, okay, well, I'll go for mana then. I'll take it. Unfortunately, you kind of missed a little, and now you're definitely going to die to that skull, or he'll just keep not skulling us for some reason. Let's see. At some point, he will miss with potion gems. At some point. There we go, finally. So he ends up missing. I kind of want to take the skull away from him. Zachi, we don't have the Storm for yet. You know what? Let's just get the Storm rolling. We're going to go Explode, get everything rolling, hopefully get the extra turn from that green. We got it from something. That now gives us 5 Explode whenever we do Zachi, which can give her a lot of mana. Also allows her to pseudo-loop into herself. Obviously, it's not really a loop in the proper sense, but it does have some extra turn potential at a pretty decent rate. And we commit all in on that on the lower rarity team, as just be able to spam that while having a resummon of the Harpy Mage just works out really, really well. And here's the team for that. Which one was it? Mystic? So right over here, we have Harpy Mage, because Queen Zachi on its final trait has a 35% chance to summon a Harpy Mage, so you have two 35% to go into first slot when it dies. This you end up getting a Brownstorm from. You also have Mountain Crusher here for Brownstorm, though you can replace this with an offensive item if you so wish. I happen to have the Mountain Crusher here, but you can replace it with something more offensively if you have a much better option, or even just go Black Manacle. Nice, just good default option to go down if you just need something cheap and good to work there. Though you're basically spamming Zachi, kind of like we did that one fight, until you win. And that's pretty much the game plan. If you don't have this, it's obtained, actually both of them are obtained from Stonesong Aerie. And by the time you get 2 of these, you will definitely have at least 1 copy of Harpy Mage. So you just throw a bunch of shards there and you'll pretty much have this whole team. And the weapon is just one that you get from level up, or if you have a better option, use a better option. Next, let's go to Blighted Lands. So this is one of the few that might be the main skip. I would say Blighted Lands and Sword's Edge, depending on what you have, are probably the two hardest. Maybe Giant, but probably not so much Giant, as there are a few low rarity teams that can, kind of squeeze through. But I would say Blighted Lands and Sword's Edge are the two slowest this week if you lack the better options. Though, if you do have some of the better options, this one's actually not too bad. We're running a Baphomet into Fiendfire build, which is, I think, a team I've never bothered running ever, because it's normally not worth running. However, we don't really have a better option for this place, and it's honestly not that bad. So the synergy here is, well, Fiendfire weapon. This we already knew is a really good weapon, but we finally actually get to use this legend, which for the most part has kind of been kind of useless, mostly because triple damage burning hero tends to be better than it due to the flexibility that you have on it. But in this particular situation, we're using Fiendfire, which the hero class that you get this from, it's 250 wins on the Diabolus hero class. It is arguably the worst hero class in the entire game, but oddly enough gives one of the best weapons in the entire game, despite the hero class itself being so bad. It's a full AoE weapon that ends up being boosted by daemons, and on top of that, it curses and burns all enemies. Normally it's used for its curse. However, in this particular team, we're using it for its burn. The main reason being is, once we get the burn down, this does double damage to everything that's burning, while also having triple damage to everything on Skull that's burning. And it just kind of wipes everything, like, instantly. And we're just running double empower in the back so we can get mana up if we weren't already having an option that could do so. And yeah, it works out really, really well. As far as the cheaper rarity team, unfortunately, you don't have anything even remotely that good. Because, of course, that's a legend with a... actually, the weapon is easy to get. It's mostly just a legend. If you don't have that legend, it's going to be really annoying to kind of run. However, there's no alternative. You can still use the very broken weapon, or even build even more heavily into it. This one builds pretty lightly into it, as this one's building mostly into Nocturnia. So Nocturnia, you get this from Fell Roost, yet another faction troop. You might be noticing that I show a lot of these legends. I do count them as low rarity just because they are from factions, and they can always be targeted pretty directly. Pretty much any single faction legend you can get within a week or less, just from throwing all the chaos shards that you get from your daily faction things. So these are normally pretty accessible, and you can go for them at any point. It's not like you have to wait for a certain event week that rolls around like 2 or 3 times a year or something similar, like Leprechaun right now, for example. Even though you can get that pretty easily whenever, but, really easily this week. But it's not like you have to wait. Like, let's say Queen Titania this week. Like, Queen Titania, really good, 20% extra star, Fairy Fire, a lot of damage, with the 13 plus red, gains all the extra turn. Really good boost ratio. But anyways, like something like that can't be targeted that often. Like this week you can with event keys, but it's normally not. But these you're always able to target down. It doesn't matter when it is. It could be next week, could be next month, could be next year. You can easily target any of these. So I generally consider them lower rarity, even though they are legends. But they are effectively easier to get than most epics. Anyways, that aren't from factions. Anyways, speaking of epics, we're using Lammer Stew for the Empower. We used her on the previous team, though didn't get to see her as much because it won so quick. But it converts all yellow to purple. So any of the converters that you have that converts to purple, there's 2 of them. This and the Damned one, I forget his full name. But something of the Damned, he converts, I believe, blue to purple or something similar. So you have 2 different ways of getting if you don't have Lammer Stew, one or the other. Though I feel like Lammer Stew works out a little bit better. This thing basically has a true damage poke, has a bunch of resummon, and buff on its def as well as on its ability. So you're generally going to have a team of its resummon, Nocturnia, Lammer Stew, and then the weapon. And of course the weapon still does pretty similar to what it did before, except you don't have the legend in order to do the very high amount of triple damage burning, nor the double damage to all of its pokes. But beyond that, you're just kind of offsetting with Nocturnia to tank forever and just keep chipping them down until they die. It's going to be a bit of a slow team, but it should be a pretty consistent team. I feel like Sword's Edge team is worse than this. Like if you're having to use this low rarity team and like the low rarity team for Sword's Edge, this one will be a substantially quicker low rarity team than what Sword's Edge has. Anyways, let's move on to Giants. I think my team I skipped the same, though I did actually change up the cheaper team, oddly enough. So, team that we're going to be running, actually I think this is slightly different than what I showed last time in the video. Even though this is ultimately what I end up shifting to for both Stormheim and for Giants. Though it works even better for Giants because Stormheim you can't run Wand, whereas you can run Wand for here. Alright, next, what do we need here? We need to go get full mana. We're going to let him poke us with a skull. He actually creates 2 Doom Skulls anyway, so that works out. I just need that last little bit of mana, and I think we are good to go. Alright, so we go and cast this, get a bunch of skulls. Unfortunately, a bit of a miss, but we can work with that. Go for it again. Get over our mana. Do it again. Get over our mana. And now we can go for our convert. I guess we go for it on yellow here, so we try for the extra turn there. Get a nice big poke in where we can. We have another one right down there. You know what? We'll go for it before we start going for everything else. And it looks like we got our mana from it. Let's go for our skulls once again off the boulder. He creates a bunch of skulls based on how many blue allies there are. And of course, our whole team is blue. So we are getting a ton of skulls. And we got our extra turn and still our turn. And we still have a skull spam. And we still have mana accumulation. And there we go. Easy as that. As far as the low rarity team, this is probably one of the slightly more annoying places to run with low rarity. If you have to do it with all the cheaper things. As far as the team that we end up showing here, it is Ogress, Black Managle, Topaz Giant, and Zephyrus. I think last time around I went with like 3 or 4 of these giant ones that end up creating those gems. However, this time around we're running with an Ogress tank, offsetting a bit with Hero, just as a nice consistent damage poke. Topaz Giant still staying here in order to convert into those yellow gems, and using Zephyrus to boost ratio from those, also getting a ton of mana into both of them. That's pretty much the game plan here. Next, we have ourselves Fae. So Fae, a lot of things have 10-20% weak for Fae this week, so should be able to help out quite a bit. Most notably, Queen of Tanya and Hierophant Hero class, gaining some of the bigger benefit right now from all of the extra bonuses. Like right now, we're using Hierophant, and as you can see, we have 20% extra stats, meaning our weapon is doing 20% more damage there. So this one, we're actually going down a full true damage route. We're using the Ruby in order to hit for a ton of true damage. We'll also have mana accumulating back. We're using one of the either or true damagers in order to do true damage, and if they gain submerge, we still have a way back. And we're using the 50% mana start for Fae, as generally you would use the 50% mana start whenever restricted to a specific category. Not always, but more often than not. Tends to work out pretty well. So we just go for our true damage here, get a little bit of explodes. Hopefully that's enough to get you to full mana. It is. Unfortunately, it's not enough to kill, so I'm actually going to Leprechaun here and hope that gets us to full mana. Somehow we are exactly one off, which is not what you want to see. Though I guess I'll just take a blue, get that one more time, hopefully land an extra turn, then we just do it straight into our other true damage, and that is match. Not land the extra turn, but we just spam click this and it'll default do the first option. And he just summoned. No! We're going to have to kill that again. Unfortunate. Slow us down a little bit there. It is Fairy Fired right now. Fairy Fire makes you do 50% more damage to, 50% more spell damage to the target. So even though we normally wouldn't have had enough damage, the Fairy Fire there allowed us to have enough damage. And I believe we got that off of the legend there. And that's pretty much the game plan for that. As far as the lower rarity team, I actually forget what I ended up doing here. Oh, yeah! Oh, the classic. This was before, like, Urskia's shield and everything. But the reason I'm doing Cog is you actually get Cog naturally from leveling up your hero. It's not used too often. However, this is a circumstance you can get away with it. So Golden Cog, it gives armor to an ally equal to their current armor. So essentially double the armor. And of course, for Wayne, really good boost ratio. You get it for free from Forest of Thorns Kingdom questline. And we're basically just using that to boost up Forest of Thorns to absurdly good damage. We're using Wild Knight as our tank in case your hero isn't strong enough to tank. This ends up giving a bunch of life and attack, also gaining barrier, a little bit of board control, really good at not dying, even has some score reduction if it does get hit. And you can even Hunter's Mark them back, so you can hit them back for one-shots and skulls. You're using this weapon. Oh yeah, as far as where you get this one is a very low rarity troop from Wild Court. Well, I shouldn't say low rarity, it's epic rarity, but you can get it easily by throwing Chaos Shards at Wild Court's portal. The weapon is you just get it for free from leveling up. Rowan you get for free from completing a Forest of Thorns, which makes the hardest thing to get this week, well, the hardest thing to get on this team being Leprechaun. Though, given that it's in the event key drop table this week, it is actually really easy to go get, so definitely make sure to do so if you don't already, as it is used for 1.5 billion teams, especially in the lower rarity range. Alright. Anyways, final one. So, we are now on to Sword's Edge. And spoilers, though we already mentioned it probably like 10 times this video, do not do this one. This is by far the slowest location if you don't have better options. And by better options, I mean 2 to 3 or 4 Champion of Anus. Probably 2 or 3. I'm even considering replacing Surquine and Hadley out for a 3rd. But I will show it with 2 here because I know a lot of people obviously don't have 3 Champion of Anus. We do. I think we have like 5 or something. However, yeah, I do advise using 2 or 3. If you do not have 2 or 3, well, use whatever you have. But the lower rarity thing for this, if you don't have any of the Legends or Mythics, is abysmal. Especially if you can't use any like the special weapons or anything, like for resummon and stuff like that. It is absolutely horrific the options you have here, and I would highly advise this be the kingdom that you do not do under any circumstance. This has a bit of the Stormheim problem, as well as a little bit the Giant problem, in that the troops here just have like so much durability. This is basically Stormheim, but for armor. It has very, very absurdly good durability. But instead of Stormheim, where it's mostly HP and a little bit of armor, this place is almost entirely armor and a little bit of HP. And this wouldn't be too big of a deal if it had a lot of good true damage options, but it does not. So not much to really do with about that. I'm just trying to get this to full mana. And then we just go chip, chip, repeat, and go from there. So we're going to throw a chip on you, get everything hit. Throw a chip on you, It hits everything below, so we're just doing that to kind of get our cycle going. What do you convert again? Purple to yellow, green to skull. That does nothing. So we'll go poke you, get our mana going. Hopefully that's enough to get both of them up. It is going to be pretty close. Not all the way, though. We do want to make sure we get both of them up, or in the case that we're running three of them up, which I am very tempted to go do 3. But I am just showing it as 2 for the video, as 3 is not something you generally have laying around. Unless you got lucky/unlucky on Champion of Anu there. And there we go. As you can see, definitely quite a bit slower than quite a few of the other ones. And if you thought that was slow, the options you have for the lower rarity range is probably the worst we've seen yet. There's just nothing. Like, let me go to it right now. Here's Sword's Edge. Let me go to Kingdom Restriction. Sword's Edge. Sword's Edge. And we have, like, nothing. We go to base rarity here, go down to epics. I guess if you were to use one legend, or, you know, like faction legend, I guess you can kind of cheese it with a bunch of Lady Miranas. Biggest issue would be mana accumulating for her. But she has she's main gimmick is hope you land extra kill, or hope you hit the insta-kill. It's probably not worth using, which is why I didn't build around it here. If we start getting it down to lower rarity stuff, we have Graveseer, which you get from the same faction. It's a green to purple convert, but there's not much good to feed purple into. All of this does basically nothing. Surquine Hadley is going to be like your whole gimmick, because you can resummon actual good troops from Sword's Edge. So even if you don't have something like Champion of Anu or something similar, or even this in this situation would honestly not be too bad if you end up getting those summoned. Also, we have 7 Champion of Anus, by the way. How on earth do we have 7? When did that number get so high? But if you don't have some of like these actual okay damage sources, then Sir Quain can summon them. He summons a random Sword's Edge troop, which includes ones that you don't own. So you will have a potential to actually get some of the ones that can actually do some damage, like Guardian of Law or Champion of Anu. So there is still a chance to get them. It's just very low since there's a random troop from this place. But I don't know. A lot of things here are just really bad. I guess you have like green skull convert. Everything here is pretty much useless. All those are too gimmicky. You have Knight Coronet. He does a little bit of damage. Not much. A little dated, but he used to be good. But there just is nothing here. And what's even worse is weapons that aren't like a weird event weapon are pretty much non-existent from this place. If I go over to Kingdom Sword's Edge, you also have essentially no weapons to choose from, assuming you don't have any of the special event weapons, because Keen Sword's a special event weapon, all these like explodey ones like this, or the mana accumulation ones are special event weapons. This you only get like 2 days out of the entire year, though it would be a pretty nice weapon if you have it. Like a lot of this stuff, if you just don't have it, you can't get it right now. So, like this as well, like almost everything good that's here. Like you have so few options. Like this thing's useless. This thing's generally useless, so occasionally can kind of be used. I believe you do get access to Soul Blade, but it also does basically nothing. You do have access to Anu Scepter, which could be used for mana accumulation, but you really just need damage, not more mana accumulation. But yeah, there's nothing. But if you do have some of the actual good weapons, like Keen Sword could go a pretty good way. A Flail Guard could go a pretty good way. Secrets of the Crypt might even be your main damage source if you're lacking some of them. Sword's Edge Blade, if you have it, could be kind of good. So if you do have them, you do have a couple options. But if you're missing all of those, you can't get them this week. So that won't really help you now. So yeah, you have like nothing. It is so bad. I highly advise, if you don't have like at least 2 Champion of Anus, to pretty much just skip that area, or any of the other things that are pretty good damage sources there. But if you don't have any of the better legends or mythics for damage from Sword's Edge, 100% that's your skip kingdom when you're chasing for these, because you have 2 options every single time. So right now I'm currently not doing middle and just doing wherever it goes. However, the other strategy, of course, is to have one of them on the worst kingdom to do, which for a lot of people will probably be Sword's Edge if you're missing those better damage sources, and then just chase the other one wherever it goes. And just have the one that is the absolute worst of the week be the one that you can't get silver marks for, and just simply chase the other one every single time it moves. And of course, the other strategy is what we're doing here, where you leave the central one because it gives the least amount of silver, and just go wherever. That you can only really do if you have a good option for pretty much every location. Otherwise, you'd want to make it so your worst location is the one that you don't end up doing. But anyways, guys, I'll wrap it up for now. If you want to go and copy-paste any of the teams, all 20 of them will be in the description with timestamps. If you have any other suggestions or any teams of your own that you end up building, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Feel free to leave a like on the video. Helps a lot and is greatly appreciated. And yeah, I'm not sure exactly how many more of these we'll end up covering. Obviously, whenever there's like a huge shift, in teams, maybe like every few weeks or so. I'm not really sure, because last week there was almost nothing that really changed up. This week, obviously, there was, what, 6, 7 different new ones? So it really just depends on the week. If there's only like a few, then maybe we'll just cover it in the weekly video. But if there's enough that it seems like it's worth covering a video on, then yeah, we'll cover a video on it. At a certain point, we would have covered every single team multiple times to the point that we might stop doing these. I'm not really sure. But who knows, maybe like every other week or something. Not sure, like 2 times a month. Well, whatever interval, as long as PvP is still relevant. And of course, PvP is getting a lot of reworks throughout the year, so really just depends how that ends up affecting things as well. But anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your week. Best of luck if you're going on that PvP grind, which if you're watching this video, I assume you are. And catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.